You know, my wife and I, we lived in the city, and we met in the city, and we had many different freaking occupations. You know, after starting to have kids, you kind of have that interesting feeling that overwhelms you of like you're not comfortable there. You want to get back out to the country. You have these ideas of where you want to raise your kids. You know, our kids kind of got raised, I don't know, maybe Lord of the Flies, but they were just, you know, they could just walk out of the camper and they were out in the middle of their own little haven.
Basically married into it. My husband is a farmer. His family has been for 4 generations before him, and we had a farm at our disposal. Farm number 1 was at our disposal. So we decided to enter into farming as a business for us as we were raising our children.
I was born into it. This is what I've always done. You know, I've tried a couple different things, but this seems to be what I like the best.
We kind of had that idea like living off the grid. You know, you have that kind of idea like, okay, what would it take? So that was kind of like what got us into farming. It was like, we want to get out to the country and live off the grid. Farming is the most challenging thing ever. It never ends. It's like, you know, like the weather's always different. The bugs are always different. No matter how many notes you take, no matter how much you kind of anticipate timing and things like that, it is just, I love it. You know what I'm saying? So, no, it's a never-ending challenge. It doesn't get boring.
Currently, there's many challenges on many fronts, being Instacart and store delivery, the internet, and those are all big threats. A lot of different farmers markets that weren't there in the past are now there. Time for people to go shopping.
You know, there's certain groups of people that go out and get fresh vegetables from the farmers markets or the farms. But it's easier to maybe go to the grocery store and get everything you might need instead of going to individual sellers.
My wife and I just spent a couple of days in our busy schedule working on like an app where we can actually let our customers pick what they want in their box every single week. But we're doing all this extra work because our retention is horrible.
If I had a lot of family help, grandparents have helped us, and you know, our sons have helped, and their girlfriends have helped, and so we've had a lot of support from our family, nieces and nephews also.
Well, I mean, I definitely have to say, I mean, honestly, you know, we're in poverty. You know, we question why we do this all the time. We take our taxes and we go and apply for food stamps and insurance because, I mean, we're a family of 5, and I think the level of income was like 28,000. And although we're kind of in that 90 to 70, you know, the farm itself, it's a business. So the bills, you know, we had, like I said, this is the first year we didn't have employees because we're taking that effect where, you know, we lost almost $30,000 worth of income in pre-season sales. And we only made $18,000 last year as the 2 owners.
And I believe the small to medium-sized farmer actually can't even compete with a larger farmer who may have a larger cash flow or a larger line of credit or whatever. So there's competition among men. But competition among the non-farm community is very difficult. As I stated, we could probably pay $4,000 an acre in Onondaga County and make money on it, and they will pay $40,000 due to they have you know, more money involved, and many of them are corporate or the investor sponsored, and we can't compete with that. So yeah, well, and the USDA 2 farm bills ago, Congress changed the way there would been funding for smaller farms, and that's been all cut out. It's larger acreages, so they've cut out all the smaller farms. It just makes it really hard for the small farmer or medium farmer to compete.
There's always investors looking to buy farmland on large scale, and there's people investing in farmland all over the country. You know, one reason is they do get some tax write-offs, but another reason is because these huge farms are completely subsidized by the government. It becomes kind of a sound investment because they have crop insurance and all sorts of programs to make sure they do not go out of business and the value of the land stays high. And the fact is that the world population is continuing to grow, but there is no more farmland. Actually, we're losing farmland to erosion, desertification, population spreading, especially outside the cities into the suburbs, you know, people using farmland for development. And so, from that perspective, on a long-term investment, farmland is great because there is no more farmland. You can't make more, but there's more people and their need to eat.
I mean, you're already at a point where the average farmer in America is like almost 67 years old. You know, instead of a lot of countries that they do actually have initiatives to help the transfer of farms into the next generation. Because right now, with the fact that property values have skyrocketed and farms are large, but it's like their property value is worth like $1 million. You're a vegetable farmer making 10 to 12 bucks an hour. You're nobody. You know what I'm saying? It's like you have no equity. You can't. It's hard to transfer those businesses.
It's hard to know, how that will continue, but actually land access in this region is really difficult. To find farmland as a small or beginning farmer is practically impossible because the bigger farms are, for them to stay in business, they need to keep getting bigger, and so they're consolidating all the smaller farms. So they're really just waiting around for the small farms to go out of business so they can come in and buy up all of their land as fast as possible. The more land that a bigger dairy operation has, the more cost-effective that dairy operation is because they're CAFOs. They need as much land as possible to spread their manure on because the land limits how many cows they can keep in confinement.
We're a really diverse group. Vegetables is probably number 2 economic driver in the county. Being dairy farmers would be the first economic driver. We have meat farmers, maple farmers, honey farmers. There's people that raise a variety of crops, and there's people that have diversified farms also. And the small family dairy farms, personally, I know 2 that have left the business due to they cannot afford to pay their bills and are going in debt just to stay open. So they've had to shut that down. That's a big loss right there. Or they'll have to transition into some of the same crops even that we've been selling for years just to keep their farm going, so it makes more competition out there for us.
And that's that whole problem with the trade dispute with Canada over their milk price fixing and things like that. But Dean is the main corporation that owned the milk processing plant, and they had to send out, hey, we can't take your milk anymore. So there's actually hundreds and hundreds of milk farmers in America right now that are losing their farms. They've been there for 200 years. They've got no market for their milk. We're buying it in from Mexico, Brazil. Walmart don't care. Wherever it comes in for the cheapest, we're going to build our own plant and stuff.
And for the other farms who are crop farmers who are growing corn and soy, they're also starting to have a hard time because soybeans, especially most of the soybeans grown in this region, were all being exported to China. And now with the new tariffs, there's no more market for those soybeans, even though half the region's cropland is in corn or soy.
Well, it's very difficult to deal with out-of-state produce. First off, the NAFTA, which came in many years ago here, hurt New York State farmers a great deal. That was a bad program for New York State farmers. We're competing with government-subsidized products coming out of Canada. And our products going there have a high tariff now to go into their country versus what's coming here. It's always been an unfair situation. really hurt a lot of farmers in New York State. I think that drove a lot of the dairy out, was losing a market for their milk. And it also hurts us. It hurts us not only with plant sales, but it hurts us a great deal with, our sales with vegetables, fruits. They just have a lot that comes out, and their farmers are subsidized by their markets. So they're a government, I mean.
A lot of these new government mandates and stuff to us kind of makes it feel like it's leveling the playing field a little bit, but it also makes us feel like they're really just trying to get rid of the small guys.
In 2010, they had the Farm Safety Modernization Act was enacted by Congress, which is now filtering down. 2022, they've moved out full regulations on that, which will definitely affect anybody who is selling produce. There's very complicated guidelines. Basically, what USDA has now passed it off to the FDA, which isn't an organization that farmers are normally working with. We work usually with people who understand agriculture. So regulations are passing through them, coming down from the state, all the states are trying to interpret these regulations, and its implementation is supposed to be 2019, the beginning of it. And our state of New York isn't even all organized on exactly what we need, and questions they can't even answer. And in my opinion, there's loopholes in the legislation that's coming down. So that's the most current one that we would be concerned with, because we have, as you can see behind us, we have greens here, and they'll be included in that because we're actually handling them. It's mainly concerned with farm safety products, of how you handle and how you're handling your harvesting, your washing, your packing, and everything of your products before they get to the customer. So there's regulations, guidelines that have to be followed for that. But the implementation isn't quite clear to me yet. And I'm concerned a little of that, because 2019, I should know now what I need to know, what I have to have in place for 2019, and I don't know that yet.
All of my friends that own organic farms, they all get food stamps. We've all got Medicaid. We battle with the Medicaid people. We battle with the government, because you go in there with your taxes and they're like, there's no way you work this hard and only make this amount of money. You would just quit that business.
I think people are going to struggle with that. Prior to this part of the regulations, there was the called GAP, Good Agriculture Practices. Delaney Farms are following those practices. We're certified in those practices. I'm assuming some of it's going to follow along with that. With the GAP regulations, grocery stores need that type of certifications, a third-party certification that your crops are safe and you're following good practices to give them a safe product. So that actually hurt and cut off a lot of farmers if you can't afford the third-party audit, which are very expensive. So there's things that eat away at some farmers that might be on the fringe of being able to afford things.
But because of all what brought in the new Food Safety Modernization Act was kind of limiting the scale of who could sell to grocery stores. But GAP really got replaced with the now Food Modernization Act, you know what I'm saying, which actually went into effect for most farms depending on how much money you made. We're on a smaller end, so I think, we had to be in compliance. But being certified organic, we already had to be in compliance, because that's all about the water testing, what you're using to irrigate with. It's all this stuff that being organic, we already, and documenting it all that.
Vegetables, there's certain inputs you need to have in order to run the business, and if the output isn't enough, then that's what would put you into debt. Generally, it seems with vegetables, it's a fairly low input and you get a pretty substantial output. So I think that would be the goal with any business. You want to keep your input, your costs low, and your profits high.
And it's hard too in our business because when we have our main crop on, so does everybody else. So the challenges of it are immense then, because there's a lot of product around, and that will, if you're selling at a market like the regional market, then prices can drop. So you need to set your price at what you have to get to sell it. You need to hold it at that, and sell it, and hopefully you have good customer base. And that is another whole aspect, is taking care of your customer. It's really, really important to us at Delaney Farms. We're very good to our customers. We want them loyal. You know, we want them as part of our Delaney Farms family, extended family.
New York FarmNet has a lot of programs to help small farmers stay in business, and they also have a lot of programs for suicide prevention. And what happens to a lot of small farmers is they're in so much debt and they can't get out. Usually the head of the farm realizes or thinks that maybe suicide is the only way to like clear the debt and get their family, you know, out of the bad situation that they're in. And it's not their fault that they're in the bad situation. It's just that the market economy really dictates what they can do and how they can make money and how much money they're going to get paid. And then in general, for, you know, helping to fix the situation, a lot of these farms need to start to diversify and start looking at other crops besides just corn and soy. And around here it's mostly genetically modified corn and soy, so it's really not the best crop anyway for long-term sustainability, both for financial sustainability or environmental sustainability. And so I think now is a great time for farmers to start looking to diversify into like organic grains, you know, maybe some pasture-raised meat, and, you know, just different market opportunities to diversify what they do, rather than just 1,000 acres of corn or soy, which can be really dangerous. And when the market falls out, like it is right now, you know, they're actually just simply relying on government bailouts, huge government subsidies to keep their farms afloat.
When it comes down to owning a farm, it's like owning a business. So, I mean, these are all expenses, and it's always absorbed into your overhead. I mean, you're only getting income if your business has money to pay you, but it's kind of paying the house bills, it's kind of paying the bills all the time and stuff, which is kind of nice, because I've made really good money and still live paycheck to paycheck. You know, here we could not be making that much money, but we actually live more comfortably because stuff does get taken care of, you know, but it absorbs from the money that you like, I want to put my kids in karate class, or, you know what I'm saying, there's some extra things like that, or how much money you have at Christmas time. But, you know, we try to invest to try and gain a better foothold, you know. But of course we all have goals, and we enjoy the lifestyle, or else we would just quit it, you know.
Right.